everyone, and thank you so much for joining me for Daily Spark with Dr. Angela. I am your host, Dr. Angela Chester. You guys know what I like to do on my show. I want to enlighten you. I want to inspire you. I want to empower you to become your best self. Now, Scripture reminds us that the tongue is a small thing that makes grand speeches, but a tiny spark can set a great forest on fire. And today we want you fired up about my guest. She's a children's book author. I will be speaking with Lucy Geddes today about her book, Where Did Nicky Go? So you know what I'm going to tell you to do. Go on and get comfy, get cozy, get your coffee or get your tea, because we are about to get started. Hello, Lucy. Thank you so much for joining me here on Daily Spark with Dr. Angela.
Hi, Dr. Angela. It's very nice to meet you.
I'm so glad that you are here on the show today. Now, as is tradition, we always give our guests an opportunity to introduce themselves to perhaps those few folks out there that are unfamiliar with you or your work. So, first question for you, Lucy, is what makes you you? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I live in a small town in New Hampshire. I've been married for 45 years to my high school sweetheart. I am a mother to 3 adult children and a grandmother to 6 grandchildren. I love sports and activities. I love to swim, kayak, bike, cross-country ski, sew, and travel. And, of course, read and write.
Absolutely. And I could not agree with you more. Swimming is such great exercise. Not only do you get to be outside in the fresh air, but it gives you an opportunity to socialize and move your body. I find that even people that have joint issues or they are healing from surgery, that, swimming is really a great way to just relieve the tension in our bodies. I could not agree with you more there. Now, being an author, is that something that you have always wanted to do, or did you find that life presented the opportunity and you said yes?
Well, that's more it. When I was in college studying to become a teacher, I had thought that maybe someday I'd like to write children's books. After graduation, I got married, had 3 children, and taught elementary school for 33 years. And I love teaching and helping children. But between teaching, attending to my children, and their activities, which were my number one priorities, I really didn't have time to concentrate on writing. So years later, when I retired, I started seriously thinking about it. I prayed to God, and I asked Him if it just wasn't going to happen, or if I should pursue it. I prayed for a few days, and then I felt like God was saying, yes, you should write stories for children, but, and I felt like it was a big but, I want you to write stories that help children in some way, and I want them to know about me. So the short answer is I started writing children's books when I was 62 years old. I am always telling others that it's never too late to follow your dreams. If it's something you've always wanted to pursue, go for it. What have you got to lose? And with God's help, you'll be surprised at what you can accomplish. That's how I feel, anyway.
Now, the title of your book, Where Did Nicky Go? How did you come about that title?
I decided on that title because I thought it would be intriguing and because it was a large part of the story. When Danny, the little boy in the story who loses his golden retriever, it just makes him have a lot of questions, and he's very confused as to what's happened to my dog. Where did he go? And in the process of the story, he and his mom have a conversation about God and heaven, and I don't want to give too much away, but that's the inspiration for the story. For the title of the story.
When it comes to the age of the appropriate reader. What age range are we looking at, or what grade level are we talking about when we think of this particular children's book?
I would say between 6 and 12 years of age. 6 and 7-year-olds are probably may not be able to read it themselves, but someone could read it to them. And then 8 through 12 could definitely read it themselves. However, I think the best scenario would be for parents to read it with their children. And I probably should say, well, now that I think of it, 6 years and up, because I have had adults tell me that they've read the story and really enjoyed it.
And I like the fact that an older sibling or just an older child would be able to read this to a younger child and kind of have that moment, that bonding moment as well. That's always nice too. Now, when you were in the process of writing the book, with children's book authors, there's a little bit of a difference, of course, than writing an adult book, and that is deciding upon who will illustrate the book for you. Many authors have illustrated their own books, and I think that's awesome, or they've given the task to their little ones or their grandchildren, but many times you have to outsource that. When it was that part of at that moment of the process of who's going to do the illustrations, how did you determine who will do the illustrations, and how did you make sure that the illustrations matched the vision or the image that you had in your mind's eye?
Well, first of all, I look at different illustrators' work, and on this book I wanted to have not cartoon figures, which have their own place, but I wanted realistic characters, whether it was people or the dogs. So I looked at different illustrators' work, and I can't say enough about my illustrator, Shanker De Leon. Her illustrations are realistic with vibrant colors, and I especially like how she made the expressions on the characters' faces show all the different emotions that they were feeling. She did a great job. As far as having the pictures look the same, because I'm a self-published author, I had to describe every detail of every illustration to her, and that probably was the longest amount of work that I had done for the book, but it's well worth it. She would also show me her creativity. Sometimes she'd add something different, and I'd go, oh, that's really nice, or no, I'd rather not have that in there. So we worked well together, and she did a great job.
And you know, I asked that question for our aspiring authors out there that may be thinking about writing children's books as well. But the one thing that I tend to hear from authors is that the communication is so important with your illustrator. And it sounds like you did the same thing. There was that kind of that back and forth and that open communication about, I like this, don't like that. I'm thinking this color, but maybe not that hue, you know, and really just being able to make yourself available to have that conversation. I love that, how the creativity really comes out. I love it. Now, for so many of the adult authors that I speak with, there is a nudging to make sure that their book gets to press. There could be a loved one who says, you know, you really need to share your story. Or perhaps there is information that can really help someone make a determination in a life stage or something that's going on in society. It may be a little bit different for a children's book author. You guys have to be able to use, you know, fewer words to be able to explain a storyline to our little ones. So with that being said, did you have a nudging, or is there something that prompted you to write this book? Why was it important to get it out when it was released?
This was a story that kept eating away at me because my family had a golden retriever years ago named Nicky. And when he was 13 years old, our veterinarian discovered during a routine checkup that he had a tumor. And he told us that he was too old to go through an operation and we should take him home, give him lots of love, and enjoy him with whatever time we had left with him. This was the first time my 3 children experienced the death of a pet dog. Those of us who have gone through it know how difficult that can be. Children, as well as adults sometimes, may have a lot of questions. This was my inspiration for writing this children's book. I wanted to write a story that children would enjoy. I didn't want it to be depressing. I wanted it to be uplifting and hopeful, hopefully help them through the grieving process if they had lost a pet or a loved one. Little did I know when this book was published, it was published a few months before the pandemic started. So, through this awful pandemic, we've had, a lot of people have lost loved ones. And I hope that it can reach children and adults and help them in some way. That was also a goal of mine.
Now, speaking of that, the goal or the takeaway, that's my next question for you. What is your hope that children will take away from having either read the story themselves or listened to it being read to them? What do you hope they take away from the story?
Well, this story is, like I said, about a little boy named Danny who's going through a difficult time after losing his golden retriever. And I want children first and foremost to enjoy reading about all the different events that happen in the story and all the different emotions that Danny goes through. I want children to know that it's okay to feel sad, angry, confused, and have a lot of questions. I didn't want to make the story depressing. I tried to write a heartwarming, uplifting story in which Danny, with the help from his parents and a friend, goes through several events that help him to move on and find happiness again. It's my hope that this will also help, like I say, other children who have lost a loved one. And that's really what I'd like them to take away from it.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, Lucy, it is time for us to go to break. But before we do, can you remind everyone, please, what is the title of your book? Where can we get a copy? And, of course, how do we stay in contact with you?
Okay, Where Did Nicky Go is the title. And my book can be found at Amazon and any local bookstore. And I am on Instagram, Lucy Geddes, children's author.
Alrighty, everyone. Now you know where you can get a copy of the book. We'll be back right after this. And we are back. Thank you so much for joining me for Daily Spark with Dr. Angela. I'm your host, Dr. Angela Chester. My guest today is Lucy Geddes, and we're talking about her children's book, Where Did Nicky Go? And you guys know that I love children's book authors because they have a very great way of explaining sometimes some tough subjects with our little ones, and it is a great way for us to build the bond between parent and child. Well, Lucy, my next question for you is, speaking of parents, what do you hope parents will take away from this book? We know that we want the children to feel a certain way, either reading it themselves or having heard it, but the parents are important I think in this as well. So what do you hope that the parents take away or will feel having shared this book with their child?
Well, I'm hoping that this will be an aid for them. There are some topics that parents find difficult to talk about with their children. However, as a mother, as a grandmother, and a teacher, I have found that children do need to be able to talk to someone if they're going through the grieving process of losing someone. We need to remember that children are learning as they grow, but they do need guidance. Sometimes they just need someone to listen to them. Other times, they may need questions answered, giving them only enough information as they can handle at their age. They also need you to be patient and understanding with them. I've always felt that it's better to help children work through their issues or problems than ignore them. In this story, I think parents will find that Danny's parents listen to him and ask him questions in order to guide him in making the right decisions. They don't want to make his decisions for him, though. His mom is very patient with him, but yet she also makes sure he takes responsibility for his actions. When he asks his mom questions, she answers them briefly but directly. And at one point, Danny and his mom, like I said before, have a discussion about where Nicky is now. They talk about a lot of things, and it's my hope that this story will make it easier for children and parents to have discussions if they have just experienced the loss of a loved one. I do think reading this book could help initiate a conversation between a parent and their child. So I do think this book could be very helpful to parents. And I'm sure there are other books out there too. I think books kind of act as a catalyst and might be an aid or a help to parents.
You know, when it comes to grief, I think you're right. It's hard for many people, adults, children alike, teens, young adults, to really talk about it and to find many times the proper vocabulary for what they're feeling or how they feel in that particular moment. So I think this book can definitely help all parties involved. And isn't that what we really want to do? We want to be, you know, that person that can help someone go from here to there and be better in their lives. I love it. Now, I know that we have been dealing with a pandemic, and the world has been trying to figure out how to maneuver during a pandemic. Most of the time, we have been kind of in a lockdown status across this great globe of ours, and we're slowly coming out of it. Thank the Lord for that. And so for many authors, they were not able to do the book signings and the expos and all of that we would have been able to do in years past. But I do want to ask, what is your hope when it comes to feedback and being able to get out there again? Were you able to do any types of events while we were dealing with COVID? If so, what type of feedback did you get? If you weren't able to, do you hope to be able to do expos in the coming years?
Well, that's true. I wasn't able to do as much. In fact, when I first published Where Did Nicky Go, like I say, it was 3 months, I think, before the pandemic hit here in the United States. And I had just started getting it into some local bookstores. But then when the pandemic hit, I certainly at my age, I've been very, very careful about not being exposed to COVID. So the only thing, I really had to wait about a year, and it was last spring when I had my first event. I had a teacher in Massachusetts ask me if I would do a Zoom with her class, and I said I'd love to. So that was really nice. I love talking to children. It was a 5th grade class, and they wanted to know all kinds of questions about how I became an author and what the book was about and different things like that. Another event I've been able to do was an outside event here in my hometown, and it was like an old home day, and they had an author alley, and there were about probably 10 or 12 authors there with booths, and that was pretty safe. So I do hope to get out there more, as the numbers go down. So hopefully soon.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you are not the only person that has said that as far as trying to stay safe. I think that when you get to a certain age, and that includes me in this grouping, when you get to a certain age, you just say it's not worth the risk. I will postpone this year. And prayerfully, there will be a next year, and we can do it then. Because you're right, so many authors have hoped that maybe the expo this year. Nope, next year. And you just say it's nice to have that something to look forward to. And God bless Zoom. I know that they are thrilled that they are around for such a time as this, because boy, have we introduced Zoom to like everyone in the world, because that's how we've kind of stayed connected to each other. Facebook, Zoom, knowing that you can do a Skype call or portal, all of the various ways that we connect with technology. I am so glad that it is around. It has been a saving grace for many, and it definitely has helped to keep us safe. So I think that was very smart of you, very smart of you. Now, when it comes to future endeavors, I know that many of the authors I've had the opportunity to speak with, they say that they have been bitten by the author's bug. Some have said, Dr. Angela, God told me to write this one book, and that's all I'm going to do. I want to know, where do you fall in between there, Lucy? Do you think that, this is it, and this is what you're concentrating on now? Or are you maybe perhaps writing any new stuff or thinking about writing any new books?
Actually, I have a second book also called Grammy Said No, and that's also on my website, Lucy Geddes. And people may like to go there because they can see excerpts from this book also, so they'll get to see what the book is about. It's very different from Where Did Nicky Go. I'm also currently in the process of publishing a third book, which should be out by this spring, 2022. I'm not sure if we have enough time, but I do have a funny story about Grammy Said No and how that was brought about. I actually, when I became a grandparent, I noticed other people asking me or saying to me, gee, now that you're a grandmother, your grandchildren, aren't going to, they're going to know who to go to when they want things, because you'll always be saying yes. And I thought, that's really strange, because I try to bring up my grandchildren, help bring them up, just like I did my own children. So I didn't understand that. And when I read these books to my 4 grandsons, who are usually one of my first readers, they're very blunt and honest. And my oldest grandson said, Grammy, you say no a lot. And I said, really? Am I that bad of a grandmother? And he said, no. He said, you're not. He said, because when you do say no, it's usually for a good reason. And I thought, wow, that really gives you an insight, too, into what that book is all about. But I'll leave it at that.
That is a very cute story. I love it. And God bless children. They will always give us an honest answer. I love it. I love it. Now, I want to kind of switch gears just a little bit and ask maybe one or two questions just for that aspiring author out there. And that is when it comes to writing. Many authors need that morning getaway or that late night time alone so that they're able to really hear themselves think and they're able to write. Did you find that you needed any to get away from the hustle and bustle of the day in order to really get in there and write properly?
Well, there's just my husband and I now, so no, this may sound really strange, but when I wake up in the morning and lie in bed in like a half sleep, I do my best thinking. That probably sounds crazy, but I do my best thinking then. And I can't tell you how many mornings I would lay in bed and I would plan things, and I have a notebook by my bed, and I would write notes for where did Nicky go, and I would write notes, whatever came into my head, and I would have the story, I would go over it and over it. It's kind of like rewriting it in your head. And when I felt that I had it, a rough draft, then I started actually writing it out on paper. And then when I rewrote that, I decided I needed to get to the computer. So it would make rewriting a lot easier. But that's really the way I work. I have to think about a story and jot down notes. And then when I think of more, I can't say, okay, today I'm going to take 2 hours and sit down and write. I have to just go with it whenever I feel like it. And that's the way I work.
Absolutely. And to me, it doesn't sound strange. It makes perfectly good sense. Well, Lucy, it is time for us to wrap up our time today. But I have so enjoyed talking to you. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story and your book with us today. Before I let you go, though, could you please remind everyone what is the title of your book? Where can we get a copy? And, of course, how do we stay in contact with you?
Okay, Where Did Nicky Go is the title. And on Amazon and any store where books are sold. And my website and Facebook are Lucy Geddes, children's author.
Alrighty, thank you so much for being a guest today.
Thank you for.
And listeners, thank you so much for spending time with us here as well. We hope that we have enlightened, inspired, and empowered you. As always, may the Lord continue to shine His face upon you. May you receive His grace and His mercy in all that you do. Until next time, everyone, remember that you are blessed in the Lord. Have a great day, everyone. Bye-bye.